So this is the instructional video for day trading GPS, Nasdaq Index Daily Key Levels Indicator. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the user control panel. So if you go here and open up your user control panel, you'll see that on the top of the user control panel, there is an information box that you need to read through before you start using the indicator. And what we'll do is we will go through that first before we go through the rest of the functions and features of the indicator. Okay, so the day trading GPS Nasdaq NDX Index Daily Key Levels Indicator generates key daily trading levels for the Nasdaq NDX index symbol and the 8-cap NDQ 100 CFD symbol only, and is not for use on any other symbols. So this indicator will only work on those two symbols only. Before we go into anything else, I'll just show you here on the symbol search. So, for example, this chart is on NDQ 100. So you simply type in NDQ 100 and you will see here you want to go to the index CFD 8 cap, and that's the symbol you use if your chart is on that. This other chart is on the main NDX NASDAQ index. So here, if you go to symbol search and you put in NDX, you'll see index and NASDAQ. That is the one you want to select for that. Please note that you need to subscribe to real-time quotes on TradingView for CFDs, as well as NASDAQ for the indicator to work properly. Please contact TradingView to make sure you have the correct real-time data subscriptions. This indicator is for day trading and is designed to work on specific chart time frames of 30 minutes or less. Please set your chart to a time frame that is at least 1 minute or at the most 30 minutes. If you set your chart to something outside of that, the levels will not be correct, and yeah, it's only designed to work on time frames of 30 minutes or less. So just make sure that you set it to a time frame that's at least 1 minute or at the most 30 minutes. The indicator generates the daily bull-bear key price level, bullish above and bearish below, and daily key support resistance levels for the main Nasdaq NDX index at different EST New York times each day that the market is open, depending on which symbol you have your chart on, either on the Nasdaq NDX index symbol or on the 8-cap NDQ 100 CFD symbol. If you would like to see the bull bear key price level and daily key support resistance levels for the main Nasdaq NDX index before it opens at 9:30 a.m. Eastern New York time, then use the indicator on the 8-cap NDQ 100 CFD symbol. When the indicator is used on this 8-cap NDQ 100 CFD symbol, every trading day the market is open at approximately 9 a.m. Eastern New York time, it will generate the daily bull-bear key price level and daily key support resistance levels for the symbol that it's on, the 8-cap NDQ 100 CFD symbol, and at 9 a.m. it will also display two tables, which I'll show you here. The two tables are, one is for NDQ 100, the symbol that it's on. The other one is for the Nasdaq NDX index. And both of these are displayed at 9 a.m. So this is the way that you can get the Nasdaq NDX index levels 30 minutes before the open at 9 a.m. The reason why this is the only option to get the levels at 9 a.m. is because of the way TradingView works. If you have the indicator on the NDX symbol, you will not see the levels until 9:30 because the way TradingView operates, TradingView will not allow indicators to display levels, even though the indicator knows what the levels are beforehand, until the market opens. So if the market is closed, like for example the NDX index, it's closed and not open until 9:30. That's why you cannot see these levels here until 9:30. So that's why if you want to see them early before 9:30, you need to have it on the NDQ 100 symbol. And then you will see in this table display up here what the levels are for the main Nasdaq NDX index, and those levels will be the exact same as what is going to be printed at 9:30 when you have it on the indicator on the Nasdaq NDX index. This allows you to get the levels early, 30 minutes before the market opens, and that can allow you time to formulate some trade plans for whatever NDX index options that you want to trade, whether it's long calls, long puts, credit spreads, iron condors, butterflies, straddles, etc. So any type of option play that you're looking to um, formulate a plan for. This will give you the levels 30 minutes early for the main NASDAQ NDX index and give you time to formulate a plan for what trying to accomplish that day for the NASDAQ NDX index. So going back to what I was reiterating there, if you have your indicator on the main NDX NASDAQ index, then you will see this at 9:30. If it's on the NDQ 100 CFD, then you will see this at 9 a.m. So these levels here are for NDQ 100 CFD. This table here is for the NDQ 100 CFD, but this table here displays the levels for the Nasdaq NDX index. All right, so moving on here, when you first start trading using this indicator, it's recommended that you use it on two different charts at the same time. One on the NDQ 100 A cap and the other one on the Nasdaq NDX index, which as you can see, that's what I have here, two different tabs. And finally, please keep in mind that new levels are generated each day. The main Nasdaq index is open for trading at the levels that are generated that morning, EST New York time, are for use that day for that particular session. So for example, levels that are generated on Monday morning, June 10th, 2024, Eastern New York time, are for use with that day's session for the Nasdaq NDX index on Monday, June 10th, 2024, and the following day, Tuesday morning, June 11th, 2024, Eastern New York time, new levels will be generated for the Nasdaq NDX index for use with that day's session for that index on Tuesday, June 11th, 2024, and so on and so forth. Okay, so now we'll move into the rest of the settings here. So first you'll see the support resistance settings. You'll see that these are all checked. That's the default settings, that all 6 levels are checked by default. And then the 6 levels means R1 through R6 and S1 through S6. And then, of course, we also have the bull bear key price level, which we have abbreviated as KPL. If you prefer not to have all 6 levels, then you can, of course, uncheck these and just have whichever levels that you want by themselves. So, for example, if you just wanted the first 3 levels, you'd simply uncheck and you would only have 3 levels plus the bull bear key price level. So now we're going to switch over to the other chart to go through most of the rest of this. So now we're on the NDX Nasdaq index. So the next section you'll see after the levels is zone shading. So zone shading is going to create contrast with a color scheme. It gives you a different type of display. A lot of people prefer to have zone shading turned on to help them with different level management. And as you can see here, each one is individually controlled. You can turn on and or leave off whichever ones you want. In this case, we've turned them all on. and here are the default colors for those different zones. So as you can see here, this creates a different look and feel than the standard look, and it just really depends on your personal preference. Like we said, you don't have to turn all these on. You could, as an example, just have the first two on and turn the rest of these off. And just to give you an idea what that would look like, here's what that would look like. Next are the display settings. So here we have line extension options. By default, it's set to both, which means the lines are extended both to the left and to the right. If you prefer, you could just have a right-only extension or a left-only extension or none, or just leave it on the default, which is both. Line label offset, what this controls is these line labels here, which are completely optional by default. They are turned on, but you can turn them off if you prefer not to have them on your chart. But if you do have them on the chart, what this means is that if you have it on 0 as an example, it will put it right over the current price action. Putting in a positive number moves it to the right of price action. Putting in a negative number moves it to the left of price action. So just to quickly demonstrate that, we'll put in positive 30. As you can see, it moves it further away to the right of price action. If, for example, I put in minus 60, then it moves it to the left of price action. So the greater the negative number, the more it's going to move to the left. The greater the positive number, the more it moves to the right. So for right now, we'll just set it back to positive 30. Next, we have the bull bear key price level line color, line width, and line style. The default is yellow. As far as color, line width is 1, line style is solid. So if you want to change it to something different, like dashed or dotted, then you could do that. You can also change the width. Just create whichever look and feel that you want. Next, we have main line label text size. So right now, I have main line label text size set to large. You could set it to normal as an example, huge, small, or tiny. Just keep in mind that this is kind of a function of both what it's set to here, as well as what your browser may be set to as far as zoom. So if I set it to large, but my zoom is only on 80, then it's going to look more like this. I happen to keep my zoom on 110, so that's what it looks like on large with that. So the main point is just to keep in mind that it is a function of both what your browser zoom may be set to as well as what this particular setting is set to. Next is midline label text size. So we also give you the capability of displaying the midpoints between the main labels, and I'll go ahead and demonstrate that here now by going down to the midpoint line settings. As you can see, all of the midpoint lines are enabled by default. You don't see them, however, because you still have to turn these two buttons on here. So we'll go ahead and do that now. And now you can see we have the midpoint lines and the midpoint labels, which gives you the name of the midpoint line as well as the price. Here I have this set to large and this set to normal. So this gives you the capability of putting them both on the same. If you want them both, for example, to be normal, you want them all to be the same size, then that's what that would look like. Or you can make them both large, or you can make one larger than the other. Like I said, you don't have to have them all enabled. If you wanted to, for example, turn off everything except the first two, then that's what it would look like. So if you were only really concerned about midpoints in this range here, the tightest range, then you could just simply do that. Like I said, they're all enabled by default. However, these are not enabled by default. Here we have the individual controls for the line color for each of the midpoint lines, the line width, and the line style, which of course you can change to whatever that you want. Going back here, so we went over this part. This here is the section for the controlling the color, width, and line style for the main R1 through R6 and S1 through S6. So you can change those to whatever you want if you don't like the default. Keep in mind with midpoint lines as well that midpoints can be important to use and know where they are as far as gauging continuing momentum. So in most cases, most of the time, if you see the bar starts closing above the midpoint between, say, this and this here, and it starts closing above that, it's more than likely going to go to the next level. And then, so basically, in most cases, price moves from level to level to level to level. So this, the way this is constructed, as far as this indicator, helps you with level to level trade management, as far as your entries and exits, or taking partial profits or all profits. But midpoints can certainly be helpful as far as gauging continuing momentum in one direction or another, or that momentum is coming to a halt and a reversal trend may start ensuing. So keep that in mind as far as using midpoints. I find them to be very effective. Um, Moving on here, the next section is historical lines. So you'll see there's two inputs. One is for enable the historical bull bear key price level line, which we have abbreviated as BBKPL. The next one is show historical RNS lines, which stands for resistance and support lines. So what you want to keep in mind here is that if you do use this function, that you want to be wary of what your line extension is set to give the best results and look and feel. So if you want to enable and show the historical bull bear key price level line for previous sessions, then you would simply click on this here. And what you will see here, starting with the closest one, this is the one for yesterday, then the day before that, etc. as we move on back in time. Now, if you are turning on this particular function, as far as just showing only the historical bull bear KPL line works best if you have your lines either extended both or extended right only. So this is extended both, and if you have extended on right only, then this is what it would look like. And the reasons that these can be important is it can show you important levels from previous days, and if price starts closing below or above those levels, then that could be an important vantage point as far as determining what may be happening the rest of the session. Because these were important levels on previous days, so if price is going down below or above them, then that can sort of give you an idea, along with the uh, other levels for the current session, as to where price may be headed to next. Now, if you're going to use both historical RNS lines and historical BBKPL line, you would simply click on that. And it's recommended that if you do use both, that you have your line extension set to right only. And I'll show you why in a second, but we'll just go ahead and show you this here. And of course, this function works on the same time frames from 1 minute to 1 minute to 30 minutes. So it has to be set. Your indicator has to be used between 1 minute and 30 minutes. But what this can show you is it can give you an idea of how the levels are uh, doing on previous days, how price is reacting, and generally where on most days price is confined to on most days, or where it breaks out to. So as you can see here, this was a big breakout day. In most cases, though, you'll see that in most days it's confined to a certain number of levels, and then you can see how it's reacting in the current market environment to, say, those support levels or resistance levels. And then, of course, that's not going to be an everyday event, and they do shake it up every once in a while to keep everyone honest by everything here, as you can see here, is compressed to a certain number of levels, and then all of a sudden we get a big drop. So usually it's the 80-20 rule. 80% of the time it's going to do what it normally does, and then 20% of the time it's going to be the aberration where they throw in a different thing for the day. As you can see, that happened here as well, where we had levels that were confined to just a couple of levels, and then we get a big drop day here that goes down all the way to mid S4, S5. But again, these can be helpful to show where price has been, how it's reacted in the past to certain levels, to sort of give you a way to gauge what may be happening currently in the current session. And also the past resistance and support levels can also be helpful in many cases as far as price revisiting certain levels currently from previous days as well. All right, so just to show you what will happen if you have both of these enabled, and why you don't want to have, if you have both of them enabled, why you do not want to have this on both, extended in both directions. And the reason is that if you do that, it's going to extend the current day session in both directions, and that just creates kind of a confusing look for the previous days, because it's extending the current day in both directions. So if you are going to use both of these and want to just take a look at the historical, then I recommend that you just use right only extension. Okay, so for right now, we'll just turn those both off. Okay, for this next section, we'll start out with the other chart. And now we're going to go over the table displays. So while your chart is on NDQ 100, you have, as we went over earlier at 9 a.m., you'll have both of these table displays also come up at 9 a.m. Now, you don't have to have both of them uh, turned on. You could turn them both off if you want. Or, for example, you could just have the Nasdaq NDX table turned on if you're simply concerned about seeing what those levels are for the 9:30 open and getting them early at 9 a.m. while you're on the NDQ 100 chart. But by default, both of them are going to be on if you're on the NDQ 100 chart. The thing to keep in mind is that, as you can see here, you have a table position for each one of these. They need to be on different table positions, so you don't have the same table position for both of these table displays. They need to be in different ones. So right now this is set to bottom left and this is set to top center. Text size is on auto for both as default. That's basically the normal size. You can make them larger or smaller. And obviously you can make them different sizes from each other if you prefer. Right now we'll just go back to auto. And of course you can change the table position. I'll just change this one real quick just to show you. Make it from top center to top right. But you can make it in any one. Just remember, if you're on this chart where it displays and you have both of them displayed, that you need to set them on different positions. What these controls are for the table foreground color is for basically the background and foreground of the table display. It creates the contrast. So as you can see here, since I use a black background for my charts, I have it on deep black and the highest opacity to create the most contrast with these particular color schemes. You can change it to something else, just play around with it if you like a completely different color scheme than what I have set up here for the default. Here you can change the table header background, which is this, the background color for R1 and S1, for R2 to R6, and S2 to S6, and you can individually control each one of the table displays. So if you even want a different look for one versus the other one, you could do that. Now, when you're on the main NDX index, you're only going to see this one display here, which of course you can turn off if you prefer not to have it on. You simply come down here and uncheck this one. As you can see, even though this is checked for the NDQ 100 price level table, the way that we've designed this indicator is that if you have it on the NDX index, you're not going to see it, even though it is checked. So if you have both checked, you're just going to see, while it's on the NDX Nasdaq main index symbol, you will just see the table for the Nasdaq NDX levels. But again, as I said, you don't have to have those turned on. So if you just like trading with just a regular chart, and just going to the chart itself, as you can see here, the bull bear KPL for today on was 20,722.76. And as you can see here, the open was below that, and we have bullish above, bearish below. As you can see here, we've sold off basically all the way down to mid S4, S5. But the initial move here went down to S2, then down to S3, and then finally down to S4, and attempted to go back, but never closed over the midpoint. We'll just turn on the midpoints here. So as you can see here, there was no trading through the midpoint or closing through below here. and neither was there here in the attempt to go back up. But typically, you'll see in 80% of the time, the 80-20 rule again, that'll go down, retest. If it breaks through, it's normally going 80% of the time to the next main level down. As you can see where that happened here and here as well. So again, it's the 80-20 rule, but that's why midpoints can be important as far as helping to gauge further momentum and or reversal points. Okay, so that's going to conclude this instructional setup video. If you have any further questions on how to use this indicator, you can send us an email or you can send us a DM through TradingView. And we thank you for your business and wish you good luck in all of your trading in the future. Thank you.